Just ahead, we recap the Oregon State game. Boiler volleyball had back-to-back sellouts, and both basketball teams are gearing up for the season. I'm Denton. Don't go away. Sports is next. Purdue football suffered a 38-21 loss against Oregon State last weekend to give them a 1-2 record. The Boilermakers' first road trip brought them under 500 for the first time this season. It was a rough week for the passing game against the Beavers, with Hudson Card completing only 7 passes for 56 yards. But the team's rushing game picked up the slack. Junior Devin Maccabee had a season-high 168 yards on the ground, and senior Reggie Love III added 67 more. Overall, the team ran for over 8 yards per carry. On the defensive side, senior Kydron Jenkins had a career-high 16 tackles and 2 sacks. The Boilermakers will look to bounce back tomorrow against Nebraska Cornhuskers in this year's homecoming game. Nebraska is coming off a tough overtime loss to number 24 ranked Illinois last week. The Cornhuskers will be looking to improve their record to 4-1 in the first road game of the season. Purdue football is tied 6-6 all-time against Nebraska after losing on the road in their matchup last season. Purdue has won 4 of their last 6 meetings. The Boilermakers have won 54 homecoming matchups in school history and have a 4-2 record in a homecoming game since 2018. A rough weekend in Kansas, Purdue volleyball looked to bounce back Wednesday night when they opened up conference play in Holloway. The Boilermakers came back home after suffering their first 2 defeats of the season. The pair of losses would drop the Boilers to 10th in the rankings, and for the 4th time in 5 games, their opponents would be a fellow top 10 team, the 4th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State was coming off its first loss of the season to top-ranked Pitt last week, and they got out to a hot start early, forcing coach Dave Shondell to use both of his first set timeouts. While Purdue had a little flurry at the end of the first, Penn State took the set with ease, 25-14. The second set was not much better. Purdue would improve, but fall 25-21. The third set was a must-win for the Boilers, and the block party was doing everything in their power to help out the home team despite the effort. Purdue would fall in the final set 25-20. Cameron Hanna led the way for Penn State with a game-high 14 kills. This loss drops Purdue to 9-3 after an 8-0 start to the season. The volleyball team will be back in action on Saturday, taking on the 16th-ranked Minnesota in Minneapolis. But as Purdue volleyball had a setback Wednesday night. The team has been on a roll this season, but suffered a few top 10 losses, including dropping a matchup against number 4 Penn State. The team has now sold out all of their home games for the 2024 season, including the games that will be played in the home of men's and women's basketball, Mackey Arena. The first game being against our rival, IU, on October 19th, and then another Big Ten opponent, Wisconsin, on October 26th. Selling out Holloway and Mackey Arena is no surprise for the team, as last year they put the rest of the NCAA on notice with a spectacular season, going 23-9, as well as reaching the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. But not only did the team give us a glance at the future, they are proving that it was not a hoax with their run so far this year. As far as the past 2 seasons that Purdue volleyball has been successful in, we are rooting for them to win this first Big Ten title since 1985. I know us here at Fast Track will be rooting for them, and I hope that you will be too. The Purdue women's soccer team is coming off 2 losses last week. In the game against USC Trojans, Purdue lost 0-1 after a hard back-and-forth affair. The Trojans scored early on in the 4th minute of the game, which followed an end-to-end struggle between the 2 teams. The Boilers almost switched the momentum in the 25th minute of the first half when Abigail Roy scored off of a few ricochets, but was ruled offside. Purdue hoped to bounce back this past Sunday in their game against new conference foes UCLA, but fell short in the second half. The 2 teams entered the second half at a standstill, but the Bruins were able to get 2 goals within 3 minutes of each other from low-percentage areas. The Boilers traveled west to play Washington on Thursday, and looking ahead this weekend, will battle the Oregon Ducks at 4 p.m. on Sunday. Both men's and women's basketball teams held their first team practices of the 2024-25 season this week. The men's team is looking for revenge after the disappointing finish in the national championship last spring after falling to the Yukon Huskies. The men's basketball team has big shoes to fill in this year with the absence of all-star player Zach Edey. Entering his 20th season as head coach, Matt Painter is still chasing the elusive national championship that has haunted this program for years now. At the forefront of the Boiler offense are returners Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. And look for sophomores Miles Colvin, Camden Heide, and Will Berg to make an impact with much more playing time this year. For the women's team, they have an entirely different reason to celebrate, after head coach Katie Geralds was granted a contract extension through the 2028-29 season. After a disappointing 2023-24 season, where they finished with a record of 15 wins and 19 losses, Geralds will be hoping to lead the Lady Boilers back to the tournament. With basketball season just around the corner, the Purdue men's basketball team is gearing up for the revenge tour during the 2024-25 season. However, the university is taking one evening to remember and appreciate the magical Final Four team that graced this campus last spring. Tonight, the 27th, there will be a screening of the men's basketball 2023-24 season highlight video at 9 p.m. Purdue's men's basketball released a teaser earlier this week. Take a look.
All right, let's go. Stack it up. And real quick, we're here for a little bit for interviews, okay? So we'll settle in, we'll get that knocked out, then we'll get back to the hotel. We'll have food waiting for us when we get there. Tomorrow's routine is going to be very similar to yesterday. We'll come back over here, we get an hour and a half closed practice on the floor. We'll do more media interviews. We'll get ready for Sunday, okay? All right. Good fellas. Spin me on three. 1, 2, 3.
Zach, Lance, and Braden.
Although the stakes in this tournament will continue to get higher, much of the Boilermakers' routine will remain the same. As players get interviewed in the locker room, the coaching staff will again take their positions on the sideline, getting a close-up view of their next opponent. As they'd soon learn, the Volunteers would be the ones to line up opposite them. Of course, that meant a second rematch from that stacked Maui Invitational just 4 months prior, and another opportunity to watch college basketball's two best players share the same court. And so preparation began, just like it had 38 times before. A projector flipped on, papers passed out, and assistant coaches breaking down their next opponent.
That's a wrap for sports. Have a great weekend, Boilermakers.